Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Emily Hiles, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Aircraftman David O'Brien. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. With golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is got by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Please be seated if able. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where family and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved. And here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament. Flowers of the forest, wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Corporal Charles Harold Hodsdon. Charles Hodsdon was born on the 29th of January 1893 in Brisbane, Queensland. The second eldest of 4 children born to John and Amelia Hodsdon. The family remained in Brisbane throughout his childhood, and he attended the Brisbane Boys Central School. After finishing school, Charles began work as a tailor, living in the Brisbane suburb of Windsor. Charles enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 23rd of September 1914. He was assigned to the 15th Australian Infantry Battalion with the rank of private. While training in camp at Broadmeadows in November 1914, Charles was charged with breaking camp and being absent without leave overnight. He was fined 1 day's pay. A few weeks later, he was charged with refusing to obey orders and insubordination to a non-commissioned officer. He was fined 10 shillings. Charles left Australia on the 22nd of December 1914 in HMAT Ceramic, bound for Egypt. Charles arrived in Egypt in early 1915 and after a short period of further training, left to join the Mediterranean Expeditionary Force on the Greek island of Lemnos, where it was preparing for the April landings on the Gallipoli Peninsula. At some stage before the landing, Charles was promoted to the rank of corporal. Corporal Charles Hodsdon landed with the 15th Battalion at Anzac Cove late in the afternoon of the 25th of April 1915 and was immediately involved in establishing and defending the front line of the Anzac beachhead. During fighting on the 19th of May, Charles was wounded in his leg and admitted to the hospital ship Gallica for evacuation to Heliopolis. He remained in hospital at Heliopolis until the 18th of June, when he was transferred to the hospital at Heliohan for further treatment. Charles rejoined the 15th Battalion on the Gallipoli Peninsula on the 28th of July, where they were preparing for the planned offensive at the beginning of August. From May, the British and Ottoman forces had largely been locked in a stalemate. The August offensive was intended to break through the Ottoman lines and enable the British forces to push across the peninsula to capture Constantinople. As part of the August offensive, the 15th Battalion was ordered to assist in the capture of Hill 971. Hill 971 was the highest point on the Sari Bar Ridge. On the night of the 6th of August, the attack commenced on Hill 971. The 15th Battalion formed part of the left column of the assaulting force and started their approach at 10:25 p.m. The difficult terrain on the approach to the ridge made the advance slow, and by dawn on the 7th of August, the battalion was well short of its objective. After consolidating the ground gained on the 7th of August, the final assault on the summit of Hill 971 was attempted on the 8th of August. In trying to further their position on the northeastern spur, the 15th Battalion was exposed to heavy machine gun fire. Although some ground was gained, the arrival of Ottoman reinforcements ultimately forced the 4th Brigade to withdraw. The attempted advance was costly for the 15th Battalion, which incurred 417 casualties over the 48-hour period. One of those casualties was Corporal Charles Hodsdon, who was captured by the Ottomans and made a prisoner of war. During the assault, he had sustained 2 wounds to his groin and broken his hip. As a result, he was admitted first to the hospital at Harby, Constantinople, and then to the Tashkishla Hospital. Conditions at the Tashkishla Hospital were infamously bad, and other prisoners noted that Hodsdon's wounds were left dirty and neglected. Charles remained in hospital until January 1916, and his condition steadily deteriorated. Too ill to speak, with infected wounds, he began suffering from intestinal tuberculosis. Charles succumbed to his wounds and illness on the 20th of January 1916. He was 22 years old. Charles was originally buried at the Ferry Quay Protestant Cemetery in Constantinople. In 1931, as part of efforts to consolidate the graves of British prisoners of war from across the Ottoman Empire, his body was exhumed and reinterred at the Hadar Pasha Military Cemetery in Constantinople. Charles' family posted a number of death notices in the local Australian newspapers after his death. Just before the first anniversary, and again on the second anniversary of his death in 1918, his parents, sisters, and brother inserted a poem in his memory. His country called, and quick came his reply. Now with Australian heroes he sleeps 'neath a foreign sky. To guard his country's starry flag, his best he freely gave. And though we mourn, we're proud to say, he fills a soldier's grave. His name is also listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Corporal Charles Harold Hodsdon, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of our director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.